Yo, Joburg, and welcome to episode 240 of the very same podcast. We've titled this episode Turncoats. We're going to get into a topic about GI Joe agents that might go to the bad and Cobra agents that might go over to the good, plus our speculations as to who the next Decepticon or Autobots could be in the GI Joe X Transformers line. Yep, we know they are just getting started, ladies and gentlemen. But my name is Steve. I'm joined by my usual suspects. Hello, Paul.
Hello, everybody.
And Rob's here as well.
Yes, I am. Hello.
Forgive me being a little bit sing-songy. I've got to test if the voice is all there. It is, of course, just after 6 a.m. down under. How you fellas doing back on the dark continent?
Oh, I'm gonna start first. No, all good. Just being teensy bit busy, but got some cool stuff to talk about this podcast. It's been a fun week in terms of toys. Yay! And,
So, in other words, same old from Mr. Paul Deadly Pencils Loebscher.
yeah,
Rob,
same old.
What's new in your life, my friend? Cut him off.
It's so good. Had a good week. Fantastic week. I saw a movie.
Yes. Which movie?
Yes. Oh, I saw The Batman. I really quite enjoyed it. I think it's worth your time. Just don't get hung up on the soundtrack if you don't like modern music inserted into your soundtracks.
Yes, Rob saw The Batman, and so did I, and we can't get into it because Paul hasn't yet. He's going to see it tomorrow morning. No? When are you going to see
I
it,
meant
Paul?
to see it on Friday. I'm so sorry, guys. It's just
That's all right.
rubbish came up and it just messed up my weekend. So
Well, that also gives the entire Bear Force a chance to see it, so we don't spoil it for them. So go
But
see it,
if you
guys.
want, if you want it spoiled, or if you have seen it and you'd like to see if your opinion lines up with mine, you can check out Saints on Cinema, Mr. Tim Wilde's channel on YouTube. The link will be in the description below. And we got into it for about 45 minutes, which is great
Wow.
because I needed to get things off my chest. So thank you, Tim, for giving me that outlet and that platform. Of course, his opinions are top shelf as always. So yeah, man, like I say, if you really are dying to know what I thought, don't hesitate. Straight after this podcast, head over there. Saints on Cinema.
And
But-
also just a small happy birthday for Mr. Saints on Cinema, who celebrated his birthday the other day.
Happy birthday,
yeah,
Tim.
so I just thought
That's
it'd be cool
crazy.
because he's
Happy
part of the
birthday,
Bird
dude.
Force. Be nice to just shout out happy birthday, Tim. And also somebody who is definitely in the show in spirit, but not always here with us in the live audience, is Mr. Cody. Happy birthday to you as well, dude. I blame this man. I mean, thank him for the He-Man madness. Everybody can thank him for Heberg. Because he's the soul who got me Skeletor and He-Man so many months ago and set me down the dark He-Man path. Anyway, let me not hijack this anymore.
Well, on the topic of Cody and his generosity, I was going to credit it right at the end of the Renegades saga, but if you are a watcher of our play motions, you would know that right now Sarge and the Renegades are kind of the protagonists of the ongoing adventure, which I'm in the process of concluding. But I would not have access to Taurus, Red Dog, and Mercer had it not been for Cody sending me a little care package, like pretty immediately after I arrived in Australia and started complaining about how few toys I had to hand. So yes, you have Cody to blame for this entire saga. But gentlemen, we have neglected one important new release for some time now, and it's the 112 Collective by Mezco Toys. Nobody's gotten them in hand yet, but they've announced Destro, Roadblock, Firefly, and most recently, Snake Eyes. Paul
And Storm Shadow.
and Storm Shadow? Well,
Yeah.
buddy, what is Mezco all about? Enlighten us. I know they're premium priced toys. They look pretty incredible. What's the deal?
Okay, so the quickest way to explain Mezco is especially in the GI Joe terms, is we're kind of getting smaller sideshow figures. That's kind of what they feel like, and probably the best way to sum it up. But I feel like there's just a little bit more happening than that. Because they are smaller and they have got sort of somewhat realistic clothing or detailed weapons, they definitely have their own personality and their own kind of thing going for them. They've done some impressive stuff with the X-Men, so much so that I've been quite tempted to get myself a cable from them, but decided I'm going to keep my money for one of the GI Joe releases. So they're pretty exciting. They've a little bit more of your, like you said, maybe more of a top shelf premier style collectible. Definitely not the kind of thing you're going to. Well, I don't think it's the kind of thing you're going to sneak in your keep around in your jacket pocket when you go to restaurants and play with, on the table while you wait for your order to arrive. But there definitely will be talking points if if you had to display them. Plus, they're smaller, so they take up less space, which is a bonus.
They look 12-inch, but they're actually 1/12 scale, so 6-inch.
That's correct.
Figures.
Yeah, so
They'll
about classified.
Integrate with classified, except they'll show them up, surely.
I'm going to say yes and no. I think there's definitely going to be some discrepancies in terms of scale there, because yes, they are going to be 1/12 scale, but I think the proportions of them are different enough from the classified that they might stand out quite a bit. Never mind just the aesthetic, them having sort of realistic clothing, realistic meaning soft goods and things like that happening for the clothing, versus, the sculpted detail on something like a classified Joe. So yeah, so there's definitely going to have, they're going to have that side to them. So I don't know if they're going to mesh with your classified line, but if you're the kind of guy that you're a big fan of GI Joe, you feel like maybe there's too many classified figures out there, and you just want to get a few to showcase, your love for GI Joe, I think Mezco is the answer for you. And why not? I mean, look at Destro's gear. I mean, look at this, like this briefcase. It's amazing. It's not just, this is better than the sideshow briefcase, and they had like more real estate to play with and bigger tooling.
For folks listening to this as a podcast, let me just describe that it's sort of a bulky attaché style case. I think one of those like tool cases that are kind of bulked out, that have these, locking latches. You flip it open and you've got an embossed Cobra logo on the inside, and you've got the option of two different inserts. You can either have Destro's classic, like, broken down weapon in it, like, which I assume could then be taken out and then assembled into a weapon. I assume that is it.
Oh.
Oh my goodness.
You
okay, but it's all sort of
here.
insert. It's a pistol with like attachment parts, like a forward grip, a buttstock. It's got two large magazines that insert into the front. It's got a suppressor or barrel extension. It's got a scope. Yeah. Oh my word, it's beautiful.
Beautiful.
And it sort of sits inside of a foam insert, so it's very snug and form-fitted. Or you have the option of like what looks like a radioactive isotope or an explosive red glowing bomb. Why is it red glowing? Because it's actually got lights in it. Okay, you've got these crazy, like bits of like tech that glow. And not only that, but the top face of the box has a flip open screen, which also, I think, glows with a light. I mean, wow. The things they can now do, even at this larger scale, is astounding. That one.
And then on top of that, I mean, right now we've got a picture of Destro with all of the stuff that comes in the box. And we have got this massive rifle that looks like it's, 30 minutes in the future. We've got two different portraits, actually three different portraits. We've got a grinning one, which is sort of more in line with the cartoon. We've got something that's a bit more like harder edge, like the vintage toy. And then we got, and then
that would be my display head all day, I tell you. Love those, like that hard brow and those sunken eyes.
I love that. I think that's really, really cool. And it's good that they included that because I think people would have outright rejected this if it didn't come with that head sculpt. Because the other two, I think, are a little bit more controversial. Although, when I showed this to Jim, or when Jim and I were talking about this in private at one point, he was absolutely like in love with the sort of grinning or grimacing head,
okay.
should I say. He's just like, it looks so out there and outrageous, and he digs it. And I gotta say, I dig it too. At first I was like, whoa, but it's actually pretty rad. Then on top of all of
Important
this
question
stuff,
from the chat, though, just to derail you for a second, Paul, because you know I love doing that. Can you play with it? Asks Hans Chow. He submits that you cannot.
I'm gonna find out, dude.
He's got it on
Whoa,
pre-order.
Paul's
I've
put his
got a
money where
Destro
his
on
mouth
pre-order.
is. My goodness.
Good
Yeah.
boy. The Destro
These
particularly.
toys
don't-
look amazing. Like
Yes.
I've seen other Mezco. I think they're called 112s.
Yes, yeah.
And they're so
112
good. We had a
collective or something.
Superman red Superman, so like the Russian Superman in the store once, and it comes in such a beautiful. It came in this amazing tin, had like a slip thing that went over the tin. So the presentation is absolutely incredible. I mean, even if you aren't able to play with it, yeah, it's gonna look absolutely amazing. Playing with it would be cooler than not, though. I think.
Yeah. Listen, the cool thing about that scale, about the 1/12 scale, is that there's so many diorama pieces out there. There's so many guys making diorama stuff for 1/12 scale because of Marvel Legends, Star Wars Black Series, and now GI Joe Classified. And of course, let's not forget to mention the awesome Action Force toys by Valiverse. So, if you're yes, you can play with them, maybe not in the traditional sense, but I don't think a lot of guys are going to play with them like, in the same way that we like to play with them. But they're definitely going to play with them, with a camera included and some cool photography stuff going on. So, I mean, that's the one thing that I think could make them quite exciting. I got to say, this is not a line that I want to try and get every one of. I want to be very, very, very careful with this. For example, I really love this Roadblock. I think he's really great, but I'm not in a hurry to get my hands on another Roadblock in my life. I'd rather save my Mezco money for, like, if they do something like, I would say Stalker or a Scarlet or Lady J, or give us somebody that's completely different and new and interesting in the line that we haven't really seen in toy form for a while, or so I'm looking forward to that kind of thing. The Destro for me was a must buy. But then we are seeing pictures of this bad boy over here, of Firefly. And
Ooh.
I must say, I had to do a double take when I saw this, when I was looking for these images, not for this episode, but for the last episode. I was sort of looking for these images because I wanted to spring them in the last episode. And I went past this thinking that this was a Sideshow figure. And that's kind of embarrassing because I own the Sideshow figure. So that is some kind of endorsement of the quality of these toys. As for playing with them, yeah, like I said, I will know when I have my Destro, and then I'll play with them.
But how much do they cost, Paul, is what everyone's wanting to know.
I think, okay, let's start with they're expensive. But
Just get us prepped for the dollar number.
Yeah, so and also, guys, remember when I say something's expensive, I don't necessarily mean that as a bad thing. For me, expensive is like you spend money and you get quality, as opposed to it being overpriced, which is when you spend too much money and you're getting subpar quality. So, I mean, for $100, $100 to $120, I think these are pretty fair.
Well, I'm on the Mezco Toys website, and it says non-refundable deposit of $25 and a purchase price of $100. So they want you locked in, man.
Yeah, I think it's because they're going for a similar business model that Super 7 goes for, in that they want to get guys to which is a good thing because it's worked out for Super 7's Ninja Turtle line, which surprisingly has done reissues of Turtles of the first two waves, which is quite impressive actually. So yeah, There's one thing I do want to say that's worth mentioning with the Mezco toys, and to go to Hans's question in the comments. The only figure that I'm a little bit concerned about, and I'd like to see more pictures of this before I give it, before I'm a bit, more critical of it. But Snake Eyes, that kind of outfit with that kind of rubbery sort of material that they're using there, I am very scared of that tearing apart and falling and sort of eventually sort of disintegrating over time. Because I've seen guys with Hot Toys Ed 209 and other things, Batmans, that have completely like just disintegrated, and they're gross. It's like torn rubber everywhere. It looks like a Stretch Armstrong that's like been in the sun for too long. It's just ugh. But yeah. That's my only criticism leveraged towards the Snake Eyes with the limited pictures that we have. Hopefully we'll get more clarity on that later when Mezco does their full lineup. There is also a Storm Shadow that's coming out. The pictures aren't worth showing because it's literally just the side of his face. So I'm really excited about more pictures of those. But yeah, that's Mezco stuff for now. And I'd love to hear what characters people want to see in Mezco. What is the one character that's going to pop out in Mezco form that's going to make you go, yeah, I'm going to drop $120 on that? I'd love to hear.
And are you gonna sell all your classifieds to do so? I mean, it's a big ask up front,
Swap
but
them,
these are
swap them.
premium action figures, and I suppose if you want to flip them straight after testing them out, if you're not mad about them, they will always fetch more on the aftermarket than they do up front. So there's always that. Yeah. But gents, I think I've said all I wanted to say about Mezco, or I've prodded Paul all I wanted to prod. Rob, unless you've got something to add, I think we should get into our topic.
Hell yeah, dude. Let's go grey. Let's turn our coats.
So this one was suggested by Robert, actually. I'm
Word.
delighted to announce. He thought it might be fun if we speculated who of the Cobra camp would flip and become Joes, and who of the Joes would flip and become Cobras. People are flipping all over the show. Maybe we should have called this flip flop. But GI Joe has a rich history of turncoats. Cobra Commander's son became a Joe. Dusty became a Cobra for a couple of days. Snake Eyes started out his feature film, his self-titled movie, very much an agent of Cobra, and then kind of flipped by the end, and they decided to give him a fancy suit and motorcycle helmet, and yeah, go my son, go bring back Storm Shadow. So there are plenty of examples of characters going one way or the other, but we took it upon ourselves to speculate who else might be waiting in the wings as a traitor, so to speak. Rob, do you want to kick this one off, my friend?
So I thought, I really struggled to think of Cobras.
Oh, Scoop, of course. Looking at your avatar, I'm like, yeah, Scoop started out as an agent of Cobra Command.
That's quite an obvious choice, I think. That's why I tried to not choose Scoop. But from the animated series, he was he started as Cobra guy because he was convinced erroneously that the GI Joes had destroyed his family home. It's interesting also because you could make an argument that in the actual GI Joe himself, he could be a double agent. In the toys, because there he was kind of sent to GI Joe to kind of monitor them and capture footage for kind of higher ups in the military chain of command. So I suppose even in other form, not just the animated series, you could argue that he could actually be a turncoat. But anyway, so I struggled to think of Cobras because I was like, what makes a person necessarily on the Cobra side? Is it a bloodlust? Is it what is it that makes them be Cobra? And I try to think of ones that maybe were less about being evil, more in it for say money or something like that. And I don't know if it's a good choice or not, but for me at least, I can imagine.
Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, he just sold strikes. That's fine. No, I thought Tomix and Zammot. I thought because at least the way that the characterized, say, like in the file cards, I mean, they're more in it really to have complete control of finances and to be able to push finances to the limit, essentially. You know, like how much money can we possibly make? I suppose, yeah, in the most unscrupulous ways possible. But I can still imagine that can't be the only thing driving them is money. There has to be other, maybe better things in them that could actually make them decide to not be as evil as, say, they have been portrayed in the past.
Well, I think so. No, I was going to say something that could be quite fun with the twins is that they could have a fierce rivalry with Destro, and then decide to side with Joe and put a lot of money into R&D and all that for GI Joe technology so that they can take on Destro. So I can imagine them like turning their back on Cobra to snub Destro. You know.
Yeah, or
As
maybe there's
power
like a
play.
disagreement between the two. I mean, that probably
Yeah.
wouldn't happen so much in the cartoon, but like in other media, a disagreement between them, and then they could kind of become their own rivals. And you have, say, Tomix on the GI Joe side and Zamet on the Cobra side.
Ooh, I'd be intrigued to see that. Wow. You can
Yeah,
turn
Doesn't
against
that
your own
I think
brother.
the stories would be really interesting.
Oh yeah.
You go absolutely crazy with that sort of stuff.
Okay.
I recall. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I just wanted to mention. I do recall. I think is it IDW or Devil's Due, and I can't remember if it's some kind of frontline or special missions or something. But Zaymot or Tomax is killed, and the one that survives actually joins GI Joe. Guys in the comments and stuff, correct me if I'm wrong or enlighten me. But I do recall something like that.
That sounds
So
really cool.
that's-
So,
yeah, that's
so
very
someone came up
interesting,
with it
Rob.
before me, or maybe I was influenced by that.
Maybe,
Not
or
that I
maybe
remember.
it hasn't happened. Maybe it hasn't happened, and this is like a fake memory. That's maybe you just inceptioned me.
It could be. It could be. I've inserted something in there.
Sounds like possibly GI Joe Cobra to me. That series did some interesting things in terms of twisting the psychology of the Chuckles character. So it's anybody's guess whose side he's really on. Probably his own, because he's felt betrayed enough by GI Joe and certainly been embedded in Cobra long enough to kind of lose a lot of himself to the mission. But we got some great suggestions besides old Chuckles. I particularly like Scuba Pete's suggestion of Zorana,
I
who,
was just thinking of Zorana. Yeah.
if you take the cartoon to be your canon, the Zorana mainframe romance speaks to maybe like a Mr. and Mrs. Smith type setup where they're both working different like secret lives. Like she's in the employ of Cobra and he's in the employ of GI Joe, but they come together to have this illicit affair. And perhaps, yeah, their allegiance is more to love than to their respective factions. So yeah, man, it's interesting. It's a plot line that I'd love to see. Like, maybe it's just a function of age, but I'm like, let's see less like explosions and gun violence, and let's see some like romantic GI Joe plots, where that becomes the more important thing.
Interesting. Really
MCDJ
taking me
says
back to
True
my
Lies.
Yahoo group days.
Yeah, and MCDJ ACDC says that it definitely reminds him of True Lies, which is another sublime. I think that probably was Arnold Schwarzenegger's like action comedic peak. Like it was the perfect
love that
blend
movie.
of all of the things that Arnie offers. Just this incredible like action persona, but also he's funny, dude. In the right hands.
He's
What kind of
hella
cop
funny.
are you? You let the
James
bad guy get
Cameron,
away.
man. Genius. Yeah, no, definitely. Wonderful, wonderful
Look at me when I'm
suggestions,
talking to you.
And of
Love
course,
it. Sorry.
this was something that I first pondered, but like Blood, Firefly, and Zartan, if the price is right, their allegiance is malleable. Perhaps in certain situations they would cooperate with the good guys if it was in their best
Yeah, I mean,
financial
it probably
interests.
wouldn't be GI Joe themselves offering them that money, but say like someone that they're helping out, and that person has hired one of these guys. Yeah, you could imagine that happening actually.
Or desperation. I can imagine something like Major Blood, particularly. He probably enjoys the good life between engagements. So if the noose starts tightening around him, who's to say he might cut a deal?
I,
Mm-hmm.
I think there are certain characters in Cobra who will definitely turn their backs on Cobra if Cobra became more successful at their goal of world domination, of controlling things. Because then
We're really shitty at this, and
Cobra-
I kind of like the way it's happening right now. So can we just not actually take over the world?
yeah, it's like I kind of like this like will we won't we situation because it's not really affecting my family, you know, kind of thing.
I
But
can
I
still
think
go to
once
the
it affects-
movies.
Yeah,
Mr.
exactly.
Sweeney
you know,
gets romantic on us in the chats by saying that Duke could leave the Joe team due to Scarlet choosing Snake Eyes over him. Wow, that's a pretty bold move for a lover scorned. You're going to switch sides on it. But hey, man, like I say, I'd be interested in seeing something that dealt more with the personal lives of Joes and Cobras than perhaps them going out, all guns blazing. That'd be interesting. And the conjecture keeps coming. Hans is like, Zorana and Mainframe are not just a clashing of ideologies, but a clashing of ages. Mainframe is a senior soldier with many years under his belt. He's seen years of combat. Zorana is a punk in her 20s. And that's always interesting. An angle, the younger woman, older man situation. Yeah,
Something
man.
a lot of
Now,
people could
starring
get
Harrison
behind.
Ford.
No doubt, man. I'm going to throw one into the cauldron and just say that, to my mind, Zartan seems like the most malleable out there of all and could possibly be a deep cover agent to begin with. Because
Very likely.
the one confirmed kill that Zartan has, canonically, is none
Yeah.
other than Serpentor. He brought the
Exactly.
Cobra Island Civil War to a very swift conclusion. So I'm starting to think of a conspiracy theory where Zartan has been embedded with Cobra for so long that he's actually been responsible for bringing down a number of their grander schemes and plots.
Yeah.
And it all
actually,
started with his pupillage under the Master Swordsman Onihashi. I mean,
Yep.
if you believe what you read in
Love that
particularly
arc.
the later comics, like he was hugely remorseful after implicating Storm Shadow in the Hard Master's death. His master, Onihashi, who he studied under, Zartan's master, took his own life out of shame.
Yeah, he committed
And that
seppuku.
sent
Yeah.
Zartan down a very conflicted path, which could have easily had the effect of him being like, to hell with this, I'm going to work to bring down Cobra Command, because they did this to me. They ruined my life. Cobra Command did this. So I'm going to play this long game. So I'd love for Zartan to be a double agent or triple agent, or, he just is the ultimate chameleon. So to say that he's perfectly aligned with Cobra's views would be a huge oversimplification.
I just
So he's
love
my
that
number one
section in the
pick.
comic.
Oh,
I
yeah.
love that section in the comic, man. It's one of my favorites. It's actually the one piece of. I mean, there's a lot of great stories in GI Joe, but that just really worked for me. I loved seeing Zartan go through that sort of moral dilemma and facing himself. And you could even extend that to the comic, that conspiracy, because his rivalry with Destro, could also be seen as him sort of being a saboteur to Cobra's plans in the form of being Destro's rival and being petty. So that's another one. That's actually a very cool one, Steve. Nice one, dude. Dig that.
Kind of
So
an
I'm
obvious
gonna
one.
throw-
The Master of Disguise being kind of flexible in his allegiances, but it strikes me that Zartan is one of the most complexly written characters, particularly
Well,
in
there you
the
go, right?
later, the 80s and 90s of the G.I. Joe ARAR series. So yeah, once again, like we're pretty inaccessible to folks who haven't read the comics perhaps in depth. But if you are curious, like, check out that period of the run, and yeah, you'll learn some new things about Zartan, perhaps.
But Paul, who do you think who do you think would flip sides if Cobra
So-
actually achieved world domination?
So I loved the idea of Zartan as well, and I gave it some thought because it was just as Steve said, it is a character that could obviously be the turncoat, but at the same time, so much complexity that it's actually worth speaking about. So I figured, well, Steve's the man to do that. I'm going to instead take another character, another two characters that I thought would be quite fun to play with, and the first one is Tripwire. um, I feel like Tripwire is one of those, you know, how he's always clumsy and all that kind of stuff. Like, he's built up this character. You know, nobody, like, I love that he has that failing, you know, as a, you know, EOD, you know, specialist or whatever. But, like, you know, to be that, like, obviously, like, clumsy and all that, that just screams to me of, like, he's already a plant. He's already doing something, you know, naughty. And in my mind, he didn't die. I think it's a case of his death was faked, and then he came back later as bang bang as Metalhead. I like in my brain
Whoa.
that could be a fun kind of twist. Tripwire goes from geeky, underappreciated GI Joe, who you never feel like the Joes really get on with him or like him. You kind of feel like he's a bit of a foil, if that makes sense. Like, you know, like even there, like, ooh, something's not entirely cool here. Like when everybody gets invited to the GI Joe, you know, Christmas party or to Scarlett's surprise birthday party, Tripwire's invite goes missing in the mail. So I kind of got a feeling that Tripwire is one to turn on GI Joe, personally. In fact, so much so that I think he has in the form of Metalhead. So that's one. I've got another, but I feel
Hang
like
on,
I
Paul.
want to.
Did you say that
see...
Tripwire dies canonically?
Yeah, he does. He
Nah,
dies in.
not
I thought he
Tripwire.
died. I'm sure Tripwire dies. Anyway, I mean, you would know better than I do. You got a way better memory for that stuff.
Well, I'm just covering our ass, so at least we're 50-50. Like, you know, if he didn't die canonically in any continuity, then we're right. If he did, we're still right. So there you go. There you go.
So we are
Carry on,
right. Right.
He died in your personal headcanon. There you go. He died heroically, running into a building. We never saw the body. Yeah. And then he came out with a goatee. Bang! Bang!
And a grudge. Exactly, and a grudge against GI Joe. So, yeah. Rob, who's your next one, dude?
So,
If you have another.
I definitely have. I've two more I was thinking of. Someone like Road Pig, at least based on his file card, because it just feels like he was never given a chance, ever. You know, like it says like he came into life, and the doctor's like, "God damn, it's an ugly baby." You know, he got expelled from kindergarten. People didn't even bother to try and, you know, help him or rehabilitate him. He everything he ever tried to be a part of, people just didn't. They just kind of shunned him more than they ever tried to give him a chance to actually be a better person. I mean, it's insane. The entire file card feels like it's just a big bullying thing. Like everyone's just bullying this poor guy, and his name's Donald. I mean, it's sad. I mean, it's so sad. This sad guy who like no one just ever gave a chance to. If someone just gave him a kind hand, a few words, kind of point him in the right direction, he could be a really good person, I think. So I think, you know, get him out of this bad influences and set him on the right path. And I think Road Pig could be actually a really good person.
Yeah, tell him he's worthy. He can do.
Yeah,
something.
you're worthy. It doesn't matter how ugly you are, you know.
Well, that's why he
And if
finds
you
a
take
good
the
spot with
card-
the Dreadnoks.
Well, true, but I think his presence on the Dreadnoks, at least in the comic books, seem primarily motivated by the presence of Zorana. He's hopelessly in love with her.
Yes.
Like worships the ground she walks on. She keeps him around because he's great muscle. In fact, probably the best muscle she could find. But she ain't getting the love muscle, if you know what I mean. She's stringing him along, and once again, it's a lover scorn situation. Like if she keeps that up, yeah, what's stopping him? And if you take the
Yeah.
comic book to be your canon, once again, he's got like this these warring personalities. It's kind of Jekyll and
Yeah.
Hyde, or
Yeah, that
well,
was the other
Dr.
thing.
Banner.
Yeah,
Hmm.
like
I
if you just
love
appeal
that,
to
man.
his better side, you could be good or bad, really, in the end.
What's
Oh,
cool
yeah.
there is that he's either way he's insecure, and so somebody like Serana is manipulating that insecurity by stringing him along because she herself is like dangerous and insecure herself, so she knows how to manipulate and play people. So yeah,
Paul, I'm delighted to
fair.
see that Ryan has your back in the chats. He says that Tripwire died with all the Joes in retaliation. So if ever
Thanks,
you need
dude.
evidence of like a massive cull, just point them in the direction of the Rock movie. Oy, oy, oy. Yeah,
Man,
okay. Some more great suggestions. Cover Girl goes deep undercover and loses her true identity, lost in Cobra forever. That'd be cool. I mean, she doesn't do undercover work, but the name suggests she should. So
Yeah.
let's add that string to her bow. Like Cover Girl, it's a play on words in multiple ways. It's not just because she's a supermodel. She's going deep cover.
Well, if you
I
guys ever
neglected to
watched-
mention up top that one of the most famous cartoon two-parters involve Baroness, or an alternate reality Baroness, working secretly for the GI Joe Underground and being in
Yes.
love with Steeler. Yeah, Worlds Without End. She
great
is,
two-parter.
for all intents and purposes, an agent of GI Joe.
And also, Baroness was played up in near the end of the AROL run. You know, I know for like when we were kids, at least when David and I were kids, her and Destro were like, we're done with this Cobra crap. So in our minds, it was like, oh, they're good guys now, you know. But they did turn their back on Cobra. They had to be, I mean, Baroness had to be brainwashed, and Destro was manipulated by that. So yeah, so she did technically turn her back on Cobra as well. You know, she was like, I'm
I've-
done with all this terrorist stuff. You know,
I've only
Cobra.
come up with two because I like the binary nature of this. Like, there's a Cobra that's
Hey.
turning Joe and a Joe that's turning Cobra in my mind.
swapping
I'll leave it at that.
sides.
And it springs kind of from our chat on Baroness, but it's actually Baroness's one-time disciple, Dawn Moreno, aka
Ah,
Lady Snake Eyes.
yeah.
She
Okay, that I didn't know about. Wow.
she was trained by Baroness initially because, hey, I mean, Dawn was a citizen of Cobra occupied Springfield, or not Cobra occupied, the Cobra town of Springfield. So her initial kind of life started out very much normalizing the Cobra ideology, doctrine, way of life. She was on the bloody lacrosse team where her athletic prowess was recognized by the Baroness. And it was in the Baroness's kind of care that she stumbled onto the brainwave scanner and inherited all of Snake Eyes' memories. And if you know anything about the brainwave scanner, you know that its voodoo can be done and then just as quickly undone. If the only thing keeping Dawn Moreno on the side of G.I. Joe and on the side of the Arashikage and therefore by extension G.I. Joe is the brainwashing, well, it's a pretty simple process to undo that. Like, if she strapped herself into the brainwave scanner and then nuked all of her Snake Eyes persona again, she could very easily become an agent of Cobra Command. So I think that her loyalty is perhaps the most frail of any of the G.I. Joe adjacent personnel. But she's just so bloody good. They better string her along. Yeah, so she's my Joe that could easily flip flop and become a Cobra.
She's
And
like
that-
X-23 in that
Yeah,
respect.
totally. This force of nature that is very unfixed in her compass.
Yeah, that's actually quite a fun one and quite a nice modern one, you know, for those of us, you know, modern GI Joe fans. I appreciate that one actually. My next
Yeah, it's
suggestion.
going to sail plainly over the head of anyone who isn't reading current IDW continuity.
Well, I'm
Sorry,
so glad
guys.
I'm so glad that I now have some access to it. So I'm going to be consuming that stuff over the next couple of weeks. And so I'm looking forward to the Dawn Moreno stuff. However, the one I wanted to throw in is Croc Master. And I know it's kind of a weird one, but I don't really feel like Croc Master has that much allegiance to Cobra in the first place. I think he's very much like a pet in terms of, in terms of the hierarchy of Cobra. He's kind of just there, and he's kind of like the security guard slash janitor. And I think Croc Master is one mental breakdown away from a crocodile telling him to turn sides on Cobra, and bam, he could start thinking he's a GI Joe. And I think that could be an interesting thing to play with, is Croc Master losing his mind a little when Cobra Island is sort of taken over by GI Joe, or as Cobra is being defeated on Cobra Island, he could go through a whole range of emotions, and I actually decide, no, I like my GI Joe friends. They're actually way cooler, than my Cobra friends. Must kill for GI Joe. I can just see that kind of weirdness happening with him, because we don't know a lot about him, and we don't really know what motivates him, and that to me makes him like sort of fertile ground for being a turncoat, at least in terms of writing him. He could surprise us. He could see, I don't know, he could be madly in love with Scarlet. We could have a Serana situation on our hands with Scarlet, or it could be Cover Girl and Croc Master, and or something.
Beauty and the Beast. That's
Beauty and the
pretty
Beast.
compelling.
Exactly. And also, just to speak of Cover Girl, have you guys ever checked out that movie? I'm sure I've mentioned this on an episode before, but Domino with Keira Knightley.
I've heard of it. I haven't watched it yet, though.
Okay, it's based on the real life bounty hunter.
Rob,
Domino Hart.
you've had a long opportunity, man. If you haven't seen it by now,
Probably not going to watch it.
no, Paul, I haven't seen it myself, and I'll tell you why. I just it was marketed so poorly. I was like, I don't want to watch that. I mean, maybe it's okay, but like the trailer made it look like a real B grade.
So it's actually quite sexily shot, to be fair. Like, that's one thing it's definitely got
Keira
going
Knightley,
for it.
hello.
No, but not just that, but the action and I mean, listen, this is like my memory of having seen it a couple of years ago, so maybe I should watch it again before I make too many hard and fast statements.
But I about 12 years
remember-
old by now.
I do remember watching it back then and thinking, wow, I really like how this is shot. And I do feel that it suffers a little bit from trying to be too cool, and from trying to make Domino's character more cool than tragic, because the actual person, Domino Harvey, although quite an interesting human, was actually quite a tortured person. I mean, she eventually took her own life. She had a lot of stuff to deal with. But she was legit a bounty hunter, and she did have legitimate respect, and she did what she did. And I feel like Courtney Krieger, aka Cover Girl, is very much in line with that kind of character, and I like that. I like
Paul's
that
going to
idea.
blow
and
your
I-
mind, perhaps, but this film is 17 years old this year. Yeah. Way. That's a lifetime ago.
I do remember seeing Keira Knightley boob in it. So, I mean, if anybody...
Oh, yes, please. I'm going to rent it right now. Actually, you probably don't need to rent it. I'm sure it's free on some streaming service I'm subscribed to.
Dude,
Nice.
I don't even joke. I think when I watched it, I did rent it.
Wow. VHS or DVD? DVD, I'm sure. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, I'm 2 for 2. Anyone else got anything left up their sleeves? Some Joe Cobra Turncoats?
I think 2 is probably a good place to leave it. I mean, the rest
Ah.
that I was thinking of, I was just like throwing names out there. But I think, having heard the arguments, we could essentially argue almost anyone onto either side of this conflict. Like, you could take someone like, I don't know, DJ, and like, like he's so obsessed with music, but now he wants to make bad music.
And then he hits a hit album, and then he's just like, screw this war thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he becomes selfish, and it's all about him
Just-
rather than about saving the world.
He's just like, fuck this, I'm gonna make Festival House. And then he's a big
Yeah,
hit, and he's
he's
up there
done.
with like,
He's finished with GI Joe and Cobra.
he's like, take that, Marshmallow.
For the sake of completeness, Ryan's got our backs once again. In the Sunblock cartoon, you had the Night Raven pilot that left Cobra. I think she was called Raven, if memory
Raven,
serves.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh my
she was
goodness.
great. That was
Oof,
a
I wanted way
fantastic
of her.
episode. And then Mara from, I suppose, Memories of Mara, or
Yeah, and
Yeah.
the Once Upon a Time in Springfield as well.
which is a glimpse at a life that could have been, but she was
Could
a
have been, yeah.
synthoid in that. Oh, spoilers! And then help me, Paul. Who is B.A. Leclerc?
B.A. Leclerc is oh, and I hope I get this right. Joe and Cobra go to the Arctic, and
Yeah.
they have like an Arctic mission, and I can't remember if this was the one where there's ghosts there, or but it's something that happens in the Arctic. I remember there being a polar bear, and I do recall the Baroness actually pretending to be B.A. Leclerc. If memory serves, but I could be completely wrong. I could be mixing like 3 episodes worth of content.
Cut, cut, cut,
but
cut, cut,
yeah.
cut, 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 cut. Editing, Steve. Gonna go. Goodbye,
No,
Paul.
I think it's fair. if
You don't know what
people
you're
see
talking
that
about,
we
do
have
you?
gaps. No, dude, I just do recall that character. Yeah. But I think it's
Alright.
cool if people know that, like we don't know everything, and it's fun to not know everything,
In fact, we have this little snapshot of what GI Joe is, and we kind of like really lean into that to make ourselves sound like we know everything. I know I always play to my favorites, so yeah. Don't ask me about things beyond my ken. You'll see how quickly my knowledge
Oh.
runs out. Oh dear, Paul's got the answer
Ryan
now.
just corrected us. B.A.
You.
Leclerc is from Raise the Flag. Was the Cobra cook. Yes.
There we
Okay.
go.
Yes,
Oh,
now I
yeah.
remember. Yeah.
Okay. Hey, and there
Yeah,
was
actually-
that admiral who took over the there was a warship that was
The
going to be
Montana.
decommissioned. Montana, that's it. He became a Cobra. Yes. Yeah, no, there's a rich history of this stuff happening. I think the writers love to go back to the well of like, what if the good guys turned bad or the bad guys turned good?
Also,
But
this
something
stuff
that
was done in
turns
the
into
Cold
other
War, man.
things is called
Yeah.
a transformer, isn't it?
Ooh.
In episode 240, you don't get one topic, you get two. Guys, after the reveals of the last week or week and a half by now, I have been wondering what other Transformers we have in store. Like, it can't just be a once-off, a hiss that transforms into Megatron. The packaging itself hints at further releases. We spoke about it on last week's podcast. I mentioned it in the sort of video breakdown I did on the His Tank / Megatron. So we know quite possibly that we're going to get a Bumblebee. But the question I want to ask is, what do you suppose Bumblebee would transform into? What
A yellow
GI Joe
vamp.
vehicle has the right kind of architecture? A yellow vamp? Yeah, great.
Yeah.
I would suggest Bumblebee transforming into an Ore Striker.
Ooh, that's
Because if you
better.
look at the retro releases, we got his tanks, we got Ore Strikers. So these vehicles are kind of very prominent in not only vintage GI Joe fans' minds, but also like the current toy buying public. They've seen them both occupying shelves at retail together. So I think like nowadays the opposite number to the His Tank is the Ore Striker. And these vehicles are totally not classed together, but neither is Megatron and Bumblebee. And if you think of how little plastic there is to an Ore Striker, firstly, it means the engineering to make the transformation work would have to be very much more involved than like the Megatron just splitting open the His Tank parts and standing up on the treads. So it would have to take a lot more engineering finesse to get right. But it also will give you a much more diminutive bot in its final mode. I mean, let's face it, guys. Like the His Tank is an absolute gift in terms of transforming engineering, because it just well, the tracks.
It's got space. Yeah.
The tracks are this giant, solid plastic piece, which is just a lot of real estate to house legs. Because, that negative space in between the tracks shouldn't actually be there. It should just be like a hollow skirt, if anything, like a little bit of armor plate to maybe hide the undercarriage. I mean, no tank has that kind of exposure of its treads in the first place. But, if you are going to make the His Tank a real thing, it's going to need some armor up front just to kind of deflect you from shooting out the suspension. So Megatron gets this like extra plastic space for free, whereas the Ore Striker, it's all just air. Anything that makes up Bumblebee's carapace or his front would have to be the engine block and the bonnet. Like that leaves very little space for like legs to extend from. But that's kind of Bee's structure. You know, he's bonnet legs and I suppose cabin chest, where the passengers would sit on a VW Golf, make up his chest, and the bonnets of the vehicle make up his feet. So I'm seeing it, guys. I'm seeing an Ore Striker unfold that way.
Yeah, I can actually see it work quite a bit. I can also see his feet being the bonnet area as well. And how that can fold out, and how the arms and stuff could actually come out the rear section of the Ore Striker, and the seats and whatever's could swivel in a similar fashion to the Hiss, and also be like a shoulder seating mounted gun thing.
If the gun cage then flips onto his back, maybe you could include an extra sort of runner board, and the included GI Joe figure could then stand on his back, because there's no space to seat him on Bumblebee. So you'd have a Joe standing with a cool shoulder cannon, that being the Ore Striker's weapon, like on Bumblebee's shoulder. I know Bumblebee typically didn't have any kind of shoulder cannon, but like I'm just trying to wonder where the Ore Striker's gun would go. And I think that'd be a pretty cool solution.
Yeah, but
like
I mean,
poke Bumblebee's head through the cage.
Yeah.
Also, in the toy line, Hasbro and Takara have both leaned into drift. I mean, not drift, into Cliff Jumper for Bumblebee designs as well. And Cliff Jumper does have a bazooka and an arm-mounted weapon, a shoulder-mounted weapon.
And we know Hasbro are loving the repaints. So if you wanted to go really deep into the Transformers roster, Beachcomber, hello. I mean, oftentimes I've looked at the Ore Striker's Eco Striker variation, the sort of blue and yellow Eco Warriors version. And I've been like thinking, that's Beachcomber. Come on.
But that's if you want to dig deep in the Transformers side of things, which, let's see. Be interesting.
So that's me very shallow, getting the ball rolling with what we can most likely expect to find. I have far more like out there suggestions, but we'll get into that. Does anyone want to follow me up?
I do, because I kind of feel like this is already half done, actually. I present to you, ladies and gentlemen, Wreck-Gar. I kind of... I'm not like sitting here going, oh my god, Wreck-Gar is like the coolest character in the whole of the Transformers universe. But he's a great vehicle. And he's interesting, like, if you had to release him as like a Dreadnought character. I think it'd be interesting if Wreck-Gar and maybe some of the other Junkians were done up as Dreadnought bikes. Or maybe even like as a Buzzball or something like that. That could be quite interesting to play around with. And I think it's already half done. You know, I think it's was it Chris Miwa or Mark van Leeuwen who posted that amazing picture. They just had some time off and they posted this great shot of Zartan riding a Wreck-Gar on the bike, and it looked great.
That sounds so cool.
Like, and it just worked, and I just remember going, oh, who is that? And he's like, it's Wreck-Gar, and I was like, wow, I feel like a dummy. But yeah, I just feel like this character's already halfway there, you know, to being a Joe-scaled Transformer figure. You know, I think we're pretty much there. That's one idea that I have. Another one, and I know this might be weird, and this is how I'm going to shoehorn this in here, but a character like in Japan they call him Cordon, but it's essentially Sideswipe. I can never remember the American name for the cop version of the Lamborghini. But
Prowl? I don't know.
No, yeah, because
Jazz?
Prowl is a fair lady. Jazz is a Porsche. So I know, right? But I thought it'd be cool if this was a Dreadnought vehicle as well. Like it's like a Transformer, an Autobot that has had his memory circuits fried and whatever's, and he's been pulled over into Cobra, and they've done some very horrible things to him, aka they've turned him into a transformable thunder machine. And this would kind of be the base. Even this or even Trax would be a great base for a thunder machine that could transform into a robot, that's been like brainwashed or messed over by Cobra Commander. And something I don't have a picture for, but I think what I think could be fun for Hasbro to do, I just don't know if they'll do it, but is Soundwave or Shockwave as a brainwave scanner. So you've got this completely new mold, which is the brainwave scanner, which can accommodate, capturing a retro-sized or maybe even modern era style GI Joe figure, but it transforms into Soundwave or Shockwave.
That's kind of
think that could
cool
be
to actually add something extra where it represents something in GI Joe that hasn't been made before, but is a transformer.
So that could be a fun one, yeah. Otherwise,
I think that's kind of cool.
I see Joe Hunter 73 is responding to Ryan Sweeney, and he's like, "Do you think that they would make Bumblebee a ram cycle?" And Joe Hunter, his response to that is, "Ooh, I like that." At Ryan Sweeney, ram cycle. What do you guys think about that? Just while we're on the topic of motorbikes.
I don't think B fits the motorbike type. I think Bumblebee needs to be at least a two-seater. So Vamp or Striker, as I mentioned, like there's a certain type of transformer or Autobot that fits like bikes. I think they adapted RC to that in the movies. Obviously, Wreck-Gar and the Junkions were all bikes. Who was the one? He was part of the rescue guys. Was his name Streetwise or something? I don't know.
I think it is Streetwise, yeah.
Yeah, he was a police motorbike.
And I think there's Stunt as well, or whatever his name. I think they did like one much later.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Transformers fans, correct us in the comments.
Yeah, we know you will.
Yeah, I want Bumblebee to be, as I say, a four-wheeler, a little bit slower, a little bit noisier. Bikes are too cool, almost, for B.
Yeah, not knowing too many like bike transformers, I thought RC could be a ram and could come with Lady J. I thought that was kind of cool.
Well, if we're going to get into
really
it,
don't
let's
know
get
many
into
bikes.
the incredible suggestions already. I mean, clearly we've set a fire in the chats because guys are coming up with fantastic suggestions. All right, here we go. GI Gary says Optimus Prime as the APC and that Brawn can be a badger. MCDJ ACDC gets his account open with the usual Hound and Vamp combination.
It's such an easy like combination.
Oh, yeah.
Like you have
match
to
made in heaven. Bumblebee should be a badger, says Hans Chow. Oh yeah. Ironhide can be a mauler. Oh yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
No doubt.
I thought of
Brawn
Ironhide as
and the
the
Mauler.
Warthog, AIFE. It could come with obviously Sergeant Slaughter.
Yes.
He feels like a big beefy thing, but that's more of my interpretation of Ironhide, like from the Michael Bay movies. Because I was looking at pictures of Ironhide originally, I think he's more red, but the way that he's portrayed, at least the way I understand him, he's he's like an older, more grizzled Autobot. And I thought that would work well with like Sergeant Slaughter's personality as well. For
sure, man. I always think of Warpath when I think of an Autobot tank, but like doing up a Mauler in like a crimson color scheme, that would perhaps stray a little bit close to it looking more like a Cobra vehicle. So Warpath is a difficult one. And I mean, wouldn't it be cool if Warpath came with Metalhead? The Tourette's team, basically.
Because they're like the same thing.
Yeah, they're the same thing, pretty much. All right, Ultra Magnus could be the Rolling Thunder. GI Gary's getting pretty ambitious, shall we say.
Which we love,
This is one that I was going to suggest. Skywarp can be the Night Raven. Yes, please.
Yes, please.
The coolest Seeker jet ain't Starscream, and it ain't Thundercracker. It's Skywarp.
Skywarp.
The F-16 dressed up in black with purple accents.
Oof.
Oh, so beautiful.
Sexy.
And like,
Dude,
if you wanted to stray a little bit from making these seamless reconstructions of GI Joe vehicles. To do a Night Raven with the red accents turned purple would still look Cobra, but just
Yeah.
give you that Decepticon edge that it needs. The problem I think with the Night Raven is like there's not much architecture to play with. Like it's a very thin jet. You're either going to have to kibble it up to give it added robot limbs and stuff, or you're going to have a very, very like slender, emaciated robot form. And I don't know which is the bigger of two sins. You don't want to kibble up a Night Raven unless maybe you could make it look realistic, like they're added weapon ports or bomb bays or something. But I think having a robot that looks a little too lean and gangly, that's perhaps the biggest sin. Because a Night Raven,
Yeah.
she's a tall bird. I don't think she would adequately make a beefy transformer out of it.
You know, who,
Turn a Conquest into something.
Yeah, Conquest has a
Yeah.
nice chunk of plastic in the middle.
I think the Seekers would lend themselves. Conquest would lend themselves well to Seekers, especially.
So Python Conquest as Skywarp, and that becomes a great double header because the Python Conquest is a stealthy plane. It's got that paint job, right? And Skywarp's whole gig is that he's stealthy, and not only that, but has the ability to warp short distances. Like he can teleport line of sight. I think it
Yeah.
works line of sight. Like he can't
he
take
can go
himself to
invisible,
another
hey?
planet. That's Mirage.
Is
but
it Mirage that
Skywarp-
can do?
Skywarp can
No.
like. Oh, okay, maybe. Look, the cartoon played it fast and loose with these abilities.
Yeah.
Like they definitely made Skywarp look like he was invisible at times.
And Thundercracker was the fast one. He could go like really, really fast out of all of them.
Didn't he have some kind of audio power?
Trying
Like
to
he
remember
could
now.
deafen you. Oh man, it's been a while since I watched G1 cartoon.
Same. I have to do it.
But I'm still getting through it, man. We got you getting backed up by MCDJ ACDC Rekgar playing a Silver Mirage. I mean, that might be too neat a bike for a messy guy like
Rekgar.
Rekgar.
Yeah.
But
I think RC fits that mold better.
you know it, man. You know it.
Or even Mirage. As a Silver Mirage. Like, it kind of makes sense. They're both dainty and they both style of a substance, to be fair. I mean, if you look at the toy lineage, yeah.
Yeah, because
Mirage is
Mirage
all
was a
about
Formula
looking good.
One
Yeah.
car, so like a really high performance bike feels right. Yeah. Yeah, to me
Also-
that feels more right than making Bumblebee a bike. Sorry,
Yeah.
guys. I hate to be that guy to shut you down, but like, I just don't see it. Whereas Mirage, I do see it. That's great.
I also
And
love Ratchet.
he's all about appearances, isn't he? He's like, yeah. Although
Yeah.
it's Trax's thing. But still, Mirage he's a pretty boy.
Yeah, he is
He'd
a
rather
pretty
be racing along the motorways of Cybertron than fighting this senseless conflict. Oh.
But Trax also likes being in his car mode as well, which is weird. He prefers staying in car mode, if memory
I don't
serves.
see a Joe vehicle that suits Trax, to be honest, because he is all
Yeah.
about the aesthetic. Joe vehicles are military.
That's why I think it would be like such a cool thing, like I mentioned earlier, if Trax or Corden or something like that were taken over by Cobra and like butchered into being a Thunder Machine. I think that would be such a traumatic thing to happen to that character and make it so much more interesting. This this pretty boy that's been like taken down by the Dreadnoks and he's a slave to their will, and he can't really do much but go fast. A fun one as well is Ratchet as a Snowcat. I think that is a good fit in my mind, because that could also be a fun transforming toy. They did the small one like you showed us on the last episode from the Energon line, but I think having Ratchet as a Snowcat would be so cool. I think it would totally work, and I think, or even Optimus as a Snowcat could be doable as well.
I feel like Optimus needs to be something a little bit bigger. So I pitch
Agreed.
initially. I mean, the Rolling Operations Command Center is probably the only truck trailer I can think of. It's got a cab that
Gotta get
detaches, so you've got combat deck, you've got roller in the form of the stealth jet, and then you've got the cab to be Optimus's sort of main unit. But the Rolling Operations Command Center is like that's nowhere, man. Like that has disappeared, never to be seen again. And also, it's fairly obscure. They want to go with heavy hitters, and it seems to me that the heavy hitter that they haven't been able to repurpose or revisit has been the Havoc. Like,
Oh yeah.
didn't they did the convention club Havoc, which was basically just a snowcat dressed up in
Did we
Havoc
forget
colors.
about the Havoc?
They haven't gone back to the Havoc in a long time, and this is an infamous Joe vehicle. Like everybody knows the Havoc, and everyone thinks it's absolute junk on paper. And then you get it in
boy.
hand, and you're like, oh, I quite like this thing. It's very signature Joe, and it has all the right architecture for my mind to fit an Optimus Prime. The front kind of folds down and becomes his chest, and it's got a kind of a heroic chest to it because it's got that slope. So if you flip it all the way around and poke his head out of where the engine block is, that's a conceivable robot body. I might insist that they finally armor up the canopy instead of leaving it glass, because that's pretty weak. Or flip
know
it
what
around
I'm
and make that
hearing?
his back.
Can you guys
And
hear
then
that?
what?
Hold
What are
on.
you hearing?
He-Bug. A Sharkticon that transforms into a land shark. Yes, Bob Squad.
That's the
I
perfect
have the
three-way
power.
hybrid. My word.
Sorry.
Genius. Did you derail
Sorry,
me,
man.
Paul? I'm getting into it. The Havoc has a secondary vehicle, which fulfills the duties of Optimus Prime's scout car, aka Roller. And so the hovercraft is that. Combat deck is provided for by like just maybe adding a repair bay kind of greebly to the flip out back section. And if you want to have a place to put a figure where when you're in robot mode, too easy, man. Literally, the gun chair becomes a gun chair on Optimus Prime's back, and it can kind of crane over his head. So yeah, an Optimus Prime Havoc is a piece of piss, really.
I can't believe I didn't think of a Havoc. I feel like such an idiot. Oh, well.
Question for the class though: do you recolor it red and blue?
Yeah,
You do.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I think that would just add to it a little.
So the front
or at
half of the
least
Havoc would be red, the back half blue.
something like that. I think that could be fun. I don't know. What do the guys in the comments say? I'm sure that everybody's had a knee-jerk reaction to that question. The problem to the reason I say red and blue is because when it's in Optimus, when it's transformed and you're seeing him in robot mode, you want it to look like Optimus Prime, not like Hong Kong Prime, or Hong Kong economist. I can't say that, and it annoys me because I really want to. It would have been funny.
Yeah, I just always am reminded of how Hasbro got almost a free pass with Megatron. Because literally, like, all his grey parts kind of exist inside his tank, and then you just
Yeah.
peel back the his tank to reveal a very cartoon accurate kind of inner bot. Like,
Love that head sculpt, eh?
their head sculpt's great, the body looks
So good.
cartoon accurate. Like, they didn't have to really work hard to put Megatron inside there. Whereas something that makes use of the Havoc and still wants to give it that Optimus Prime stature would really have to integrate all of the Havoc components into it. Like, I can imagine the arms would be hidden by the front tracks. And it would all just kind of unfurl from there.
And the thing is, like, I wonder how much toy functionality you would lose from like the Havoc point of view. Like, the Megatron Hiss looks like it's still a pretty sturdy Hiss tank, whereas I wonder how fun Optimus Havoc would be, as a Havoc.
Look, the
And
Havoc
is
is a
that really-
famously thin vehicle, and I think they'd have to get in there and thicken it up, build it out in sections, which I'm in favor with. Like, add a little bit of extra plastic to the Havoc, please, because I do feel like this is a vehicle which, in 1986, GI Joe toy designers had like a runaway hit, because for its size, it is very thin in the gills, and
Yeah.
you feel it when you're handling the toy. It's like this thing must have moved hundreds of thousands of units, and it's not all that much plastic for your buck. So yeah, I'm saying that to make this Transformers X GI Joe Transformer, they've got to build it from the ground up, as they have been doing, as is the case with the Hiss tank. and in so doing, they would have to add kibble, which would then just bulk out the havoc. So it'd be the most welcome kibble of all, I'd say.
I also think that in a lot of ways you could do away with the main canopy section as well. I don't think it needs to have that much real estate for toys. I think you
I've
could put a lot
found
of
some
legs in there.
great like comic book redesign of the havoc, which I'd like to show you guys, and maybe you like. This is Image Comics' reinterpretation of the havoc. They gave it tank treads, they gave it an APC back section, but it nevertheless deploys a scout craft out of the top. So it's got that havoc functionality. I don't have very good images of it, but it's big. It's
Yeah,
got the
that's
front
huge.
cannons. It's got the gun chair, but the gun chair is like fully armored up. It's got a troop section in the back. It's got a cab where the guys can actually sit upright. And it's primarily an armored up cab, but it's got glass in the front regardless. And that, like, if they really wanted to make a blockbuster toy, that could be the perfect havoc. Like, it needs to be bigger to give it meaning and make it make sense. And fortunately, Devil's Due, back in their heyday, they managed to do that. The image that I'm flashing at the moment, if you look in the bottom right corner, you probably get the only wide shot of it. And yeah, it definitely does have a truck trailer configuration, but it's undeniably a havoc.
I can see that totally being.
I like
Optimus.
from the choices that have been kind of put forward. It's not just a chance for them to kind of like take an existing GI Joe vehicle and turn it, straight into a transformer, but it's also an opportunity to either reimagine existing vehicles or even create completely brand new things. And that's actually kind of cool. You can kind of take like a vehicle that's come out before and make it something new and more interesting. Or as Paul suggested, do a brainwave scanner.
Yeah.
You actually add to the universal GI Joe itself with what you're creating.
Also, the more I think about it, I'm loving the idea of like Laserbeak and Ravage being motorized battle packs. So like Ravage being the sort of little Fang copter, the Fang 3 or whatever, not Fang 3, but the little battlefield helicopter that goes on the the little black one, but like a cool looking modernized version of that does also transform into a panther. I think that would be awesome. I thought of that now because I was like, what would you give Destro? And I was like, no, what would you give Cobra Commander? That could be a lot of fun. Laserbeak could also be a cool little vehicle. I'm just struggling to think about what Laserbeak could be.
Serpentor's chariot.
Possibly, yeah, but possibly, yes. You could do something like that. Totally. I just love the idea of Soundwave having his little, crew happening. Because I think that just makes for such great toy fodder. Soundwave is an amazing toy. And I think when you put Soundwave in the correct context of where it is, then it works. That's why I think modern Soundwave being a vehicle, like something with wheels, doesn't really work so well as he does as a boombox or as a Walkman.
Or as a space station?
Or actually, I
Satellite?
like him as a space station. I really dig that idea.
Oh man,
because
thank
it
you,
makes
Michael
sense.
Bay.
Yeah, but he was only but that's the thing. He changed later on, spoiler alert, into an ugly Mercedes. But I like that aspect of him because that's freaky. Soundwave is just creepy, and so is Shockwave. So I hope they do something interesting with those guys and don't just try to shoehorn him into being a tank or something. I really would love to see a brainwave scanner or a motorized it doesn't have to be motorized, but one of the backpacks or a snake armor or something like that.
It's been
Yeah.
mentioned a handful of times, so I've got to throw it up there. Forgive me if I forget exactly who mentioned it, but I know that Niels Michaels mentioned it on my Mega Hiss video, and now recently in the chats, Hans mentions it as well, but broadside as the USS flag.
Ooh.
Everybody's favorite triple changer, that piece of shit, who looks awful in all three of his modes. But happens to look pretty respectable in the art that I'm flashing at the moment. Transforming that into the USS flag? Come on, Hasbro. Aim for the stars, pal. Swing for the fences. I mean, imagine how much plastic that would have to be, because they'd have to build out the bottom of the hull of the USS Flag to give him all his robot girth. But yeah, Jesus, that would be the grandest Transformer / GI Joe vehicle of all time.
And I'm sure everybody in the comments, I'm surprised nobody in the comments has actually mentioned this, but I'm pretty sure when people see this on YouTube, they're going to be like, why not Jetfire as a Sky Striker?
Oh, I mean, that was my
That was just-
last suggestion.
Oh, sorry.
Had it waiting in the wings. Yeah, Jetfire, it's perfect. And they've already done up the kind of Macross-esque parts for the STC exclusive. Now they just need to work on a transformable body. And I've seen custom Sky Strikers that transform, and I think to myself, yeah, it's too thin, too scrawny. So
Yeah.
once again, it's another case of like giving the Jets unfortunate kibble, which pays off in robot mode. But if you
Yeah.
give it those kind of weapons pack / Macross style gear, that could help alleviate some of the kibbleness. At least it's got a kind of a more canonical function and appearance. But yeah, man, if you're going to be building a Sky Striker from the ground up, as we know they are doing with the HasLab, you know, these designs are probably kicking around. Someone's thought about it. They're like, how can we fit a robot in there?
The nice thing about the Sky Striker is that if they borrowed the same design as what people know as the G1 Jetfire or the Toku Toku Toys Valkyrie from Macross, you could actually just scale that up into that format. Yes, it would be a little bit thin and it wouldn't have the best articulation around the waist area, and the legs wouldn't be able to do much else other than going forwards and backwards. But I mean, you would in essence get a transforming Sky Striker. Just don't know how much fun it would be as a toy or as a Sky Striker. So,
As I say though, Paul, like those legs wind up being very thin.
oh no, they do. And listen, the weak point on the G1 Jetfire and on the Toku Toku Toys Valkyrie is actually the arms, the shoulder joints. The ratcheting falls to pieces and eventually the arms just shoot off. It's quite sad, actually.
Well, they've only had over, I don't know, 35 years to get it right. Come on.
And you know, they have, but I mean, it's going to cost you $400. So, yeah.
Oh yeah, this is all kind of a price is no object
Exactly.
situation. Maybe we're overlooking the easiest answer, and that's just finally give us a GI Joe F-15, because that's a nice big blocky central portion to a jet, which would then make they'd make their money 3 times at least, because we get at least the holy trinity of Seekers: Starscream, Skywarp, Thundercracker, and then they could just keep going from there, because Transformers fans will particularly keep buying them.
And I don't
An
think
F-16
too many...
in 1/18 scale that's bright green, why not?
And also, I don't think too many people will be upset if they did Jetfire as an F-15 because of tooling and things like that. I don't think they would belabor it too much, you know. I mean, I wouldn't. I would be like, hey, you know what? At least we got a Jetfire, and we've got a Jetfire and the Seekers, and yay! I think it could be a win. But yeah, guys, I don't know. I'm out of GI Joe X Transformers suggestions because my God, we've got a lot, and there's some very good ones.
Money, time, engineering, no object. But like I said, my most realistic prediction is Bumblebee as the All Striker, and then obviously my most far out would be the Flag. Though that's not really my suggestion. That's just like a general sense amongst the fan base. I think Optimus Prime as a Havoc is achievable, but boy oh boy, would that be a blockbuster vehicle, and it would need complete redesign, which I think the Havoc needs anyways, because firstly, the Havoc is a bit of an incomplete design to begin with. It's very function over form. And also, I think the tooling probably doesn't exist anymore. Otherwise, we would have seen a return to it for the convention exclusives. You know, the fact that they keep reusing the Snowcat mold is very telling to me.
Yeah. Hey, we'll see.
You know
My
what
money's
also is
on-
very telling? That the companies do design new toys, Like the people who make Transformers design lots of new toys all the time. They're always coming up with new ways of transforming toys. Lego is always coming up with new sets. I don't think it costs that much money to come up with new vehicles and new ways
It's just the tooling
of
that
making
that gets
things.
expensive. Yeah.
You're absolutely right, Rob. I've often
You know-
kind of been a Hasbro apologist on this podcast, but yeah, if there's an appetite, give us the toys. Plastic be damned. Transformers is now the latest excuse to print money because that stuff always sells. It's always available. It's always big. There's a huge thirst for it. So
Yeah.
yeah, GI Joe can ride the coattails of this bigger brand all the way to the
Absolutely.
bank. Hmm.
Yeah, man. And also, like, you know, to add to that sentiment as well, I mean, there are people out there that are paying $499 for a very big turtle van from Super 7. So, yes, I think, you know, I think it's possible. I think Hasbro, I think you can make big toys. It's okay. People will buy them.
We're big boys. All right, let's put a cork in our Transformers X GI Joe discussion and quickly turn the focus onto Rob's love and spoonful. Rob's love and scoopful. Each week, we've decided to have Rob elect his favorite responses from the YouTube comments threads on the previous week's podcast and bring them to our attention for discussion in the show. So you too, dear listener, could have your response highlighted on GI Joburg. All you got to do is head over to our YouTube video and drop a comment on the most recent pod.
So actually, we have to catch up. I haven't done
Oh, yeah.
2 episodes, so I'm going to go in reverse order. So we're going to do 239, which was 2 great flavors. So George Hunt said, "Hello from Point Pleasant, West Virginia, and I'm in Mothman country." And I was like, "West Virginia? Did we go to West Virginia?" And I was like, checking our map, our route when we went to the States to JoeCon. And we weren't in West Virginia, but we were very close, to
close.
Point Pleasant. I think we were about
Yeah.
less than 300 miles away from where that was. We actually slept over at a tiny little, what we affectionately called the murder house. And I could very easily see us being attacked by some sort of Mothman creature where we stayed that night.
But yeah, Point Pleasant is actually kind of renowned for being in a lot of supernatural stories or paranormal stories, should I say? Anyway, carry
It's
on.
wild. It's wild to me. And also this stood out to me because it made me think of our trip. Also, George also said that he wants the Dusty. And I think most people agree that Dusty is a good one to have.
I
But
completely
Ryan-
didn't hear you, Rob, but you were taking lovely swipes at that Dusty saying. He looks like he's wearing a very thick jumper, like he's got a jersey on.
a lot of people like him. I was
Funny.
just like, he's too warmly dressed. But also,
He's
why
sharing those stalker tools, man.
why I like George's comment is because a lot of people on episode 238 were kind of commenting like, hey, how do we get GI Joburg back to the States? Or how do we get, GI Joburg all together in the same place again? And I was like, I would absolutely love to go back to the States. And I think
me
at some
too.
point in the future, it's something that we have to make happen. And how do people help? Just listen out. I don't know if we'll need financial assistance when that time comes, when we want to go back again. I imagine we probably will again. But yeah, it's definitely something I want to do, especially before our visas expire, because that experience it took forever. It felt like it cost a lot of money just to be able to get a thing that says you're allowed to come to our country.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think, yeah, before 2032 or 2028, I think that's something that we need to kind of prioritize, is getting back to the States. Because I think it'll be an absolutely amazing experience. We'll be a little bit older, a little bit wiser. Stephen, maybe he'll bring Elliot with. I don't know. He can go to
Oh,
his
you
first
bet.
JoeCon.
Yeah, hurts. Awesome.
And then so those 239, which kind of bled into 238, because I was looking at the comments there, and a lot of people were just like when are you guys coming back? When is this happening? Next Joe Fest, we'll see. I don't know. I mean, how old?
I don't know if the next Joe Fest, but the next Joe Fest.
next one.
Yeah,
I
like
mean,
the one
probably not
next
the
year.
one coming up right now, but
Yeah.
Well, guys,
see, I knew it.
less and less
wanna have
COVID
us.
is a barrier to us attending a Joe Fest. Now it's more a case of like the Third World War. And that's
Yes,
only
and-
half a joke because it's
Who knows what's going to happen? And it's funny that you mentioned that, because actually my favorite comment is actually from a frequent commenter, and it does kind of mention so 238. If I just remind people, it was our kind of a grab bag episode. Stephen was a little bit late. Me and Paul just kind of shot the shit for like the first half, and then Stephen joined us after technical difficulties. So it's all over the place, and I think what captures the mood of the episode overall would be a comment from Emmanuel Gossett, and he asks, the mood of the episode is, what is the general mood of the world right now? I think, is Zartan in the head of Putin, or did Putin didn't need Zartan's mind at the first place? What do you guys think about that? Like, is Putin inside the mind of Zartan? Is he controlling him? Is it the other way around?
I still want to like Zartan, so I don't really want to comment on that too much, to be very
You like
honest.
Zartan, okay? So you prefer him
I
not
like
to be on the side of
I
Russia?
despise Putin. And I have no qualms about saying that.
yeah, fuck that guy to death and all
Yeah.
of his stooges. Thank you very much. No lube.
Yeah. We don't hate Russia, but we do hate Putin and his bullshit. So
Yeah,
All
I
of
think
them.
you can single out the leaders, or a specific leader of a country versus the
Yeah.
people of that country.
yeah,
I
because they're
think,
also victims
a
of
few
it.
years ago that happened with a lot of people around the world, and the leader of the United States. It can happen here in the situation with Russia. I think also lots of people. I mean, there's a lot of countries, I think, where people, they hate the leader but not the country. So we love
This
Russians.
is a sentiment. This is a sentiment that's been said by a number of the speakers and the poets of the world, the more artistic folk who see it like it is. But my port of call is always going to be Tom York of Radiohead, and they've got this beautiful song called Harry Patch in memory of, and one of the most stirring lines in it has got to be, "Give your leaders each a gun and let them sort it out themselves."
There you go.
Why is
Brilliant.
it that people, innocent civilians even, have to suffer for the power-hungry, land-grabbing madness that like permeates all of history's despots? So yeah, guys, serious note: GI Joburg strongly condemns Russia's aggressive moves into the Ukraine. Like, this is horrifying.
Horrible.
Every day I
And
turn on the news
frightening.
and I'm like, I cannot believe this is happening. Like,
have-
why that we have gone through so much history and we still, the wheel keeps coming around again. Fuck.
Yeah.
Anyways, I don't want to lower the mood. People like to tune into us to escape this shit, but
Hey,
I don't
it's
want to be
true.
flippant. I don't want to be flippant about an issue this fucking
Yeah,
severe.
we can't be that ignorant about it, exactly. You know?
So yeah, our thoughts are with all of the people affected by this.
Yeah.
Nationalities aside, I know that the Russian people themselves are protesting this action as well, and their actions are being put down very violently by security police. And I feel for those security police members who are following orders and they dare not step out of line. So,
Not
even
saying that they're all
on
good
Russian
people,
soil,
but
like,
yes, yeah.
the shitstorm is hardcore. Not to mention how things are going to pieces on the front lines in the Ukraine. I mean, it's been said, like, is this going to dip into a nuclear conflict? Well, they started shelling nuclear power stations. As far as I'm concerned, it is already a nuclear conflict. The
yeah.
fallout for that is going to be catastrophic.
So this is us hoping that it doesn't go that way, and that,
Our
Let's
thoughts
have
are
a
with
peaceful
the
resolution
people.
for sure.
for sure. But for now, let's turn it back to something a little bit more positive and maybe a little bit more selfish.
Yeah, talk to me
Gentlemen?
about plastic, Paul.
Yes. What, did you guys get any new toys? Rob, are you
bet.
still enjoying your new toys?
I'm still very much enjoying my new toys. I filmed my little video. I'm starting to edit it. I think I need to update my editing software. Hopefully in the next 2 weeks or so, I'll have a cool timber video.
Sweet.
Awesome.
Steven released a nice little video the other day. If you guys haven't checked it out, go and check out our YouTube channel, the same one that you might be watching this podcast on. Because
That
there's
was
some cool
Steven's
little
new
mini
shit.
reviews. And it's
The
actually a
World
military vehicle this
Peacekeepers
time.
infantry fighting vehicle. Yeah, it does
Yeah.
seem like people have a thirst for vehicles because, like, the hit count on this toy has surpassed my review of the V1.5 Snake Eyes like tenfold. So it's definitely like there's an appetite for plastic vehicles, but I don't want to get into that. I shot a video about it. Check out the channel if you're interested. It's the World Peacekeepers sort of generic toy line, so it's not GI Joe, but it's complementary enough. And yeah, if you want to play out the conflict in the Ukraine right now, bomb a couple of these, just throw them off a cliff. Yeah,
And Paul,
Russian,
did you get
Russian
any
column.
non-He-Man stuff?
I did, actually. I did. I struggled to remember if I mentioned my He-Man horsey, but I won't go into that right now. Let's go into some GI Joe stuff. Okay, so these have been sitting on the back burner for a while. They recently came in this week. It's none other than I don't know if anybody can see them
Ooh.
because I can't for some reason. But
Chun-Li.
Very
Ryu.
appropriate. Very
you
appropriate
go.
since they just announced Street Fighter 6.
correct, with its originally quite bad logo. I hope they fix that. But yeah, guys, like, I mean, I got these are not clearly these are not the best condition, but they were very, very cheap. I got them for a steal from a local seller. Ryu is unfortunately missing his sash from his belt. Well, you know, the soft goods piece. Chun-Li looks like her little hair buns have been eaten off by some kind of small creature. And she has an amazing action feature. She's got a turtleneck feature because inside the pieces that hold her head up have broken. So she's got like a
Oh,
turtle head
man.
feature. So her head kind of like pops up and it's great.
She's got no neck, dude.
She's got no
She's
neck.
been hitting the gym a little bit too hard. Those traps have like engulfed her neck.
Exactly. She's like round.
Shoulder shrugs. Shoulder shrugs. That's all I do in the gym.
She's like, anyway. But Steve, the reason I bought her, actually,
Oh.
I mean, aside from, I do want a Chun-Li, but I knew that this was a bit of a beta figure, and I know that at one point you were talking about cracking
Jinx
one of
head.
these bad boys open. Yeah.
Give it to me.
Good. Yes,
I want
it's
it.
yours if you
I
want
want
it.
a Jinx head. Because I've got that Chun-Li, but she's kind of sentimental because I
Yes.
bought her on card when I was in Hong Kong last time.
Yeah.
So she's also a bit of a beater. Like, even being on card, she has yellowed. So clearly they
Yeah.
left this in the storefront, which is unfortunate. But I still don't want to crack her open. Whereas this one, she already fucked.
No, she's ready to be opened. Then I
Destroy.
got something else that was really, really, really cool and quite a lucky surprise this week. Local seller as well posted a whole bunch of stuff on Facebook, and I saw this bad boy, and I was like, I need it. And that is a Viper,
Wow.
ladies and gentlemen. It's my third Viper. It's just weird. These guys keep finding their way to me, and it's the coolest thing.
Did you get
So
it
I thought-
affordably enough? Because it's got its gun.
Yeah, I got. I don't
Stunning.
want to go into how much I paid, but
I do want to go
paid-
into how much you paid. Putting you
Okay.
on the spot, Paul. Spill.
I paid $650 for this guy and another thing that I'm going to show you guys after this. So yeah, this Viper's complete with his gun, and I'll codename him Scratch. So I've got Scratch and Scorch, and then a third one which is quite neat. But only two of them are fully geared up. And then I got and as a South African GI Joe fan, I kind of feel like it's imperative that you have to have this. This is how you know you're a GI Joe fan in South Africa. You have to have this vehicle, a Fang 2. Because they were like everywhere, and they were like 50 Rand from Dion's. And I used to have one of these, and I love it.
have one.
And I got this Fang 2 and that Cobra Viper together for 650. So good times.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah.
pretty
Sweet.
good.
And I think that's with shipping as well. So yeah, with the postnet to postnet. So that was quite a lekker score, I must say. I put the price out, and the seller was like, "Cool," and I was like, "Cool." I'm not going to negotiate it down. I'm like, "That's it. I'm happy." That's a good, that's what I put down. So, this picture that you guys are looking at, this image is what, 29 years or so in the making, I would say. Maybe a little bit more, because I had the Fang 2 as a kid, but I never had an Alley Viper. And every time I saw pictures of this damn thing, it had a damn Alley Viper in, and I was like, I must have it. For years, I used to have a Heat Viper piloting my Fang 2. Then it was a Target, and then all manner of toys eventually filled the cockpit. But until this week, I've been able to marry the Alley Viper and the Fang 2 together, and that makes me super happy. And yes, so yay! And it's such a cool toy, man. It's so much fun to play with. So
And let's not lose sight of the fact that he's going to need that blast shield down when those missiles fire off.
yeah,
So Alley Viper's a very sensible choice. He
course.
just goes blind for a sec. Then flips the knight armor back up. Yeah,
so that's
man.
been
Good,
me
good
for a little
call.
bit of exciting toy stuff. I was so happy to find this, dude. It was just lekker to get this, and I honestly can't say if this was originally a local Fang 2 or not.
Oh, I'm pretty sure it was. Fang 2s and
Yeah.
Pulverizers clogged Dion's. And then the very next year, it was Darklon's Evader adding to the mix. And a touch of Skystorm. I don't know if you got that in Joburg, but like we had Skystorms up to our necks.
Oh, dude, if I saw Skystorm, I would have bought it. That
Mhm.
yeah, it's
Crumbs from the US's table. And it seemed like Joburg was getting crumbs from Cape Town's table. I don't know, Rob. You've always flip-flopped on your opinion in that regard. You're like, does Joburg have the better toys? Does Cape Town have the better toys?
Generally, I feel like Joburg got the better deal most of the time.
Oh, well, you can kiss
I
my
still
ass.
believe
Cape Town, man. You just gotta know where to look, no?
Yeah. Toys
Okay,
gaan jou
guys.
vang.
I also got some new shit this past week. It arrived, and it's called Skyquake.
Ooh.
Paul has his Heberg. I got my Transformer Town. Skyquake is a late G1 Europe exclusive Transformer, which I believe was available in South Africa, but I never saw him. And he is the most glorious Decepticon jet of all
We had
time.
him here in Dion's. I nearly bought him on a few occasions. Sorry.
God damn.
Oh, well, man, he's beautiful. He's a beautiful disaster because these guys are time bombs. Like, they have an enormous lump of gold plastic on the back. And this is the era where gold plastic syndrome was at its height in terms of swirly gold plastic that just does not have the structural strength or I think the science of it is like it's a bonding polymer. It's very weak, makes it crumble to dust. And unfortunately, this one already is. I'm kind of having it out with the seller at the moment. I'll see if that resolves. But that is no one's fault. That's just a function of age. What was a problem was he put it in a tiny box. Like literally, the box was the same length as the plane. And it cracked the nose cone off.
Oh my god.
But like you
But-
specifically asked it. Oh god.
Sorry.
Yeah, I did. But okay, we're on about the nose cone at the moment. So gold plastic syndrome has operated on the hinge, and I'm currently in chats with the awesome Mauler Joe from Joe Mauler Works, who is some kind of toy guru. He just knows his stuff, man. He's working with me to kind of see if we can make an adequate repair on that, just to give it
he's like
longevity.
A toy necromancer.
Yeah,
he's-
guy knows some stuff, man. I suggest to anyone watching this or listening to this, check out his YouTube channel for the most awesome tips and hints. Like this guy is almost the best kept secret in the Joe world, and let me tell you,
Him and Action
mere
Robot Punch
moments
as well.
Indeed,
Yeah.
yeah. You can mention them in the same breath. But like, I emailed Joe on the subject of this break, or potential break, and within the hour, he had shot 2 videos and posted them privately to me on the
Wow.
subject. Like this guy, this guy doesn't waste any time. But yes, the nose cone had broken off in the
Oh my
post,
God.
and it had very clearly been re-glued. The seller is, of course, playing dumb. He's like, "Oh, they must have played soccer with it in the post office." I'm like, "You sold me a broken toy, pal." I haven't kind of dealt all my cards yet. I haven't pointed the blame at him and said, "Listen, you knew that this was defective when you sold it to me. You are playing dumb now because this is absolutely a very rush glue job." The adhesive is like I've actually peeled that adhesive off. It's
Yeah,
like
that's like
a
shoe
rubber glue or
repair shit
something.
or something.
Yeah, it's garbage glue, which is fortunate because now I can do a proper fix. But I do want to either call this guy on his bluff and get him to reduce the purchase price, which is perhaps first prize, or us to go through the rather lengthy insurance claim process, which can be done. Look, I didn't pay that much to begin with. These things certainly go for a lot more online. But just so I can hold my head up high that, I've dealt with a schneid seller and come out on top, that'd be grand. But the transformer itself, guys, let's have a minute for Skyquake. He is just ultimate Decepticon design for me. This era
Love
of
that face.
Transformers is my era of Transformers. The era where it was almost color-coded. Like, Autobots had a dark blue kind of inner bot onto which car robot parts were slapped, and Decepticons were black. The Transformers had silver faces, and the Decepticons had this kind of burnt copper coloring to their face. And the light piping was gorgeous, beyond gorgeous. It gave these characters new life. It gave them life, basically. Like Transformers without light piping look dead to me. These guys look like they have a kind of an inner working to them, a glow.
It's a gorgeous toy.
It's a
Wow.
little bit Tron-like. Dude, don't you love the missile feature, the bomb feature on this guy?
Yes, you roll
Very cool.
the tumbler of the engine nacelles, and the green bombs fall out. I only have 2 bombs to hand, but back in SA I have tons more. So I look forward to one day having a full rollout, Condor
And
style.
it's a pity about the gold plastic syndrome, because I know that this thing was a lot of fun when you pop the big white rocket on the top, the big white missile from.
You can't do that, Paul.
Yes, you can. I've done it. It's in the manual.
You pop the
It's in
other
the manual.
jets on top.
Yes, you can do that, and you can put the missile
And
on
the
the top as
missile.
well.
You can
The
totally do
missile's
it.
got that
Paul
little
is
fold out bit.
100%
as well.
correct.
Go and check it out. It's in the manual. It's there.
That's
And if
right.
it's
Paul,
not there, I'm sorry.
Paul,
but-
these are toys that I happen to own, so I'm gonna respectfully disagree with you. The white missile doesn't fit on the gold of Skyquake, but commentators, you know better than any of us. So if
So let
you
us
know the
know.
answer, if you know me to be wrong, please school me in the
But
comments.
I do remember, because is it Daniel or Michael that had this guy? Which is actually ultimately why I didn't buy him, because somebody I knew had him already. But I remember popping that white missile on this dude. And I don't know if it's on that gold slot, but it is designed to carry that warhead somewhere.
that
it's
being the
some-
accessory, the sort of the mega visor from Stalker,
Yeah.
the tank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think it's a case of like trying to mate 2 females.
No, it could be something like that.
Like
No,
the
I
male
agree.
part is provided for by the jets, the small jets,
Yes.
the small Predator jets.
I
Anyways,
just-
this is
I-
a GI Joe podcast and not a Transformers
Yeah.
podcast. People will be like,
Anyway.
what the hell are they talking about? But a feature that I didn't know until I started watching reviews on this toy was these enormous slats of light piping. You slide the sort of the vents closed, or you can reveal them open. So on the back of the jet, there's this cool like vented structure that you can either open or close, and it reveals these
Like a raven.
beautiful green transparent.
That is so
slab.
cool. It's so not necessary. It doesn't do anything,
It's so aesthetic.
but it's so cool that
serves
it
no
has it.
purpose. So the
Anyways,
reason
guys,
I-
that's my new shit,
yeah.
and I'm absolutely delighted to share it with you.
Also,
Obviously,
show his face
I'm a happy
quickly.
boy. Oh, okay.
Please,
Oh, well,
please.
hey, no.
Stay in
Sorry,
it.
just wanna quickly wanna put that out there. Like,
Oops.
I don't know about you guys, but I've always felt that this dude's face looks a lot like Shredder from Ninja Turtles.
Yes.
I can see that.
And it's also, but at the same time, it's also got a very Gundam face as well. It's one of the more Gundam looking Transformers.
Look, I'll stand by it. Like
I love it.
this period of Transformers, this just on the precipice of G2 kicking off, is the best because just the color palette of the Decepticons, for instance, it's all these mid-tones, all these like teals and purples and like brushed gold and stuff. Like it's just so beautiful to color code your entire armada in a similar way. Whereas G1 was all over the map. These ones had like there was a certain palette of Decepticon colors, like approved Decepticon colors, and there was certain palettes of approved Autobot colors. And Autobots had the pink light piping, Decepticons had the yellowish green light piping, and that just set these two factions at odds with one another, even in their visual appearance. So it's the best, bar none, and that's
cool,
just
man.
my bent.
This
Anyways,
does, yeah.
we've done it. We've dwelt enough
done
on
it, we've done it.
Transformers. I think
Okay.
we will do a dedicated GI Joe episode next week. But for now, thanks for slogging through it with us, guys. If you want to get hold of the
Get rid of
show,
us?
if you want to get hold of the show, scroll on down to the comment section. If you are watching the YouTube version, Rob might very well pick out your response. Or if you want to send us a long form email, our address is arealsouthafricanhero@gmail.com. We're, of course, social anywhere you find GI Joburg, and that's Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. So DM us, and we may well be responding to you on the show if I don't get around to it personally myself.
We even got a cool email during the recording of this episode, so we can probably look forward to that in our next show. So that's pretty cool.
Incredible. We're always being contacted constantly. It's fantastic.
Cool, guys.
Straight after
and-
this concludes, I want to direct everyone to Datalink's Magnus's channel, where he will be debuting the second part of his classified series stop motion adventure.
Nice.
Ooh.
I got to
Yes, he was
offer
telling
up
us
my
about
voice
that.
as General Hawk, and dream come true, it's finally happening, Shockwave. So it will have already premiered by the time this podcast goes out, but everyone in the live chats, head on over to Datalink's Magnus's channel.
Sweet. And guys, if you want to be part of the madness that is GI Joburg in the sense of like supporting our channel and stuff, your likes, your comments, your shares, even, they really help us a lot, and they make us feel love, and they give Rob something cool to read in the episode. But if you want to like support us and help the channel grow a little bit, then we do have a Patreon, and you can check that out in the link. Oh, the link is in the description below. You can join these fine and beautiful badasses on our Patreon on a roll. And there's not just one wall of them, there's 2 walls of them. So yeah, so if you want to jump in, you can jump in for as little as $3 if you want to. And that does support the channel in helping us, keep StreamYard going, helps us get stuff for review, keeps us alive, keeps us a little bit fed here. Oh, it's Eberg. And yeah, but either way, your support is greatly appreciated. So thank you very much to all those fine people.
I'm
yeah.
going to totally read out this email. It's from our buddy Sammy, who has authored the 3rd paragraph to Red Star's file card. So this is some new information, and it's very fitting. Served with G.I. Joe from 1991 through 1994, returned to Odessa afterwards. Hoped to enjoy a peaceful retirement and left military service. Spent time as a fisherman and sunflower farmer. In 2014, he rejoined the naval infantry due to the Crimean conflict, where he served as a reserve officer. Had not fired an assault rifle for 2 decades until about 9 days ago. Currently serving on the front lines in defense of his homeland. And there's a quote: "An attack on free people anywhere is an attack on freedom everywhere." Nice one, Sammy. Very fitting.
Ooh, I love
And
that.
with Red Star on our side, hopefully we can bring this conflict to a swift conclusion. Yo, Joe.
Peaceful resolution, yeah.
Or yo, Ivan. Yo, Ivan? Ivan being Ukrainian. Let me just specify.
Yeah, before there's confusion.
Yo, Ukraine.
Hmm.
Cool.
Nice one. We did it.
Yeah.
And we
super
are
cool.
out.
Get out.
Have a great week, everybody, and see you in a brief 7 days. It's been real.
Hell yeah.
Thank you for joining us, and goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye. Bang 2. Go and check out Data Links Magnus's second part episode.
Oh. Before we go, Cujo and I recorded a video on Boba Fett. It's available on Cujo's codename Cujo YouTube channel, and I will double post it. So you've probably listened to it already or watched it already because it's going to be on the GI Joburg channel. Hey, and our podcast stream. So
Go watch it again. Listen to
if
it
you
again
have
too.
any interest in a G.I. Joe guy talking about Star Wars and a fair bit of self-indulgence, Cujo asked me some personal questions, actually. So if that piques your interest,
Interesting.
it's all there. Or if you want to squarely ignore it, fair enough. We'll be back with the Joe Madness next week. But yeah, there you go. And now we're out.
Ninja, vanish. Bug.